it's a great point about trying to prevent the problem before it becomes so toxic that you need, the help of a third party. How do you know if a team is indeed at risk of these problems and try to head it off at the pass?
Yeah, so what I did in the book, for those of you who've seen it, is for each of these toxic teams I described, I provide a diagnostic in the book, both looking at whether you've got a severe case of one of these dysfunctions, but also what are some of the risk factors. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at that. What you're watching for on your team is either too little alignment, where as you listen to people talk about what you're trying to accomplish, it doesn't sound anything like what you thought the team was there to do. Lack of alignment is probably the most common source of problems on teams. So as you hear lack of clarity about what the team is trying to solve for, what people's roles are, how those roles interrelate, when you start to hear a lack of alignment, start to worry. Similarly, if you start to get the sense that everyone is completely in lockstep, you open up a discussion and close it very quickly because everyone was in agreement. That's another reason to start to worry. Are we not considering all that could go wrong? Are we not thinking far enough ahead? Are we putting our organization at risk of becoming irrelevant if we don't push and challenge a little harder? So on the alignment side, listening for the cues that there's either insufficient alignment or starting to be too much alignment. On the dynamic side, it's really around trust, communication, the ability to have conflict productively. So on the negative end, if you get the sense that people aren't listening effectively to one another, the issues aren't coming out when you're together, but instead coming out discreetly or in gossip or in back channel decision making, I think that's when you need to begin to worry. Alternatively, if everything is all about harmony all the time and anyone trying to raise a different point of view is perceived poorly or called out as not being a team player, that's the other half of that equation. So really you're trying to pay attention to these two fundamental issues: how aligned is my team and how constructive is the dynamic, and you can underdo or overdo either of those. And so paying attention to that is going to give you early warning signs that something's going wrong.
Right, it's not always obvious. It's as you said right off the top. There's some of these problems really are obvious, and some of them are not. And walking that fine line between too little alignment and too much alignment is probably not easy in general. So how do you begin to address these problems and start to take the steps towards getting it right?
It's funny. Somebody asked me, why did you write a book about teams and call it You First? And I thought it was a great question. Of course, it was, the book was out before somebody asked me that question. But the truth of it is that the only person you can control is you. And the only person who you have a hope of getting to change your team for the better is you. So the first thing you can do is take ownership that you have an opportunity from any seat at the table to make your team more effective. So if you're feeling that the team is not aligned enough, call it. Do it respectfully. Use language that doesn't create resistance, but say something like, I'm concerned we actually have different views on what the role of this team is, or I'm not sure we've come to agreement on what we're doing in the 3-year plan. I'm worried that we're working at cross purposes, or that we're reworking things, or we're reinventing the wheel. And then ask big open-ended questions like, how could we get better aligned? How could we use our time together more effectively? What are we solving for? Those sorts of things. So taking ownership, having the courage to say, I'm worried that we're maybe starting to drift as a team. That's the first place to start. That when you look at alignment and dynamic, we always say work on the alignment first. So if you're feeling tension, if you're feeling conflict, if trust is an issue, don't start there. Unfortunately, we tend as humans not to be very good at having those conversations. They're very difficult. They create defensiveness. And it's much easier to have a conversation about alignment. So what's our role as a team? What do we need to come together to do? What are the things that we shouldn't be solving for as a team, but instead should be having confidence in team members to advance on their own? And starting to move so that if the team gets clarity on their unique value as a team and what they're there to do, then that's the place to start. Once you have that conversation, you can also begin to bring up some of the dynamic issues, giving feedback and those sorts of things